How to efficiently use the WeatherTRAK Manage page. The WeatherTRAK.net Manage page is the best resource to get a real-time update about a single controller. So I always look at my WeatherTRAK Manage page before I head out to a site to get a feel for what that controller is doing. To get to the WeatherTRAK Manage page, start by logging in to WeatherTRAK.net and log in with your unique username and password. That will take you to the WeatherTRAK.net homepage. Then we go to the Smart Irrigation tab and use the drop-down menu to select Manage Controller. Once you're on the Manage page, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're displaying the controller that you want to manage. To do this, we verify the account name, the site name, and the controller name. And if this is not the controller that we want to manage, we'll use this search box to find the controller we need. When using this search box, we can either use the drop-down menu and select the controller from the drop-down, or we can use the search feature, where we type in any of the controller information, and WeatherTRAK will filter out the controllers that don't contain that information. Another way of searching through your controllers is to use these arrows that appear next to the search box, where you can scroll sequentially forward or backward through your controllers in the order that they appear on your controller list. Once I've verified that I'm on the controller I'm looking to manage, the first thing I do is check out some of the high-level controller information. Specifically, I'm always interested to look at the controller's status. This is real-time information about what the controller is doing in the field. So this controller is online, which means it's ready to do what I need it to do. But if this controller were offline, or off, or winterized, or even manually irrigating, a change in controller status would tell me that. After that, I'll pan across to check out the model of WeatherTRAK that I have and make sure I'm running the most current version of the WeatherTRAK firmware. The microzone is the method that WeatherTRAK uses to geolocate your controller, and in WeatherTRAK terms represents the square kilometer in which this controller sits. Then we check out the ET subscription end date and make sure we have a full working knowledge of when our subscription will expire. And the last thing in this section is our daily ET, or the weather information that our controller is using to calculate its weather-based irrigation schedules. One cool feature of the daily ET is if you take your computer pointer and hover over the daily ET without clicking on it, it will bring up a callout box that will show you when the ET was received by your controller, and both the daily and weekly ET for your microzone or your controller. Once I understand what today's ET is, as a manager, I might be interested to see a weather forecast, which I can use to inform my management decisions about how I need to irrigate in the upcoming days. Like if I see rain in the forecast, I might be able to pause my controller and save a few extra gallons. It's important for WeatherTRAK users to understand that the weather forecast is different than the WeatherTRAK ET Everywhere, because the daily ET provided by ET Everywhere and the HydroPoint Climate Center is what's used to adjust your irrigation schedules automatically, using Automated by WeatherTRAK or the WeatherTRAK weather-based irrigation schedules. In contrast, the weather forecast is provided for a manager in case they want to proactively pause the system. So the important thing to understand is that the WeatherTRAK weather-based irrigation schedule always behaves on reported weather or weather that's already happened, rather than forecasted weather, because the science in reporting weather is far more reliable than the science of forecasting it. Alright, as a manager, once I've reviewed all of the high-level controller and weather information, one of the things I'll be most interested in investigating is how my irrigation schedules are responding to that weather information. So one of the most frequently accessed parts of the Manage page is the Manage Stations section, where we can see unique information about how each station is programmed and how each station will generate its irrigation schedule. Let's start by looking at the station name. Notice under the station name that there's a dashed underline, and if I bring my pointer over to the name of that station and click on that station name, that shows me all of the station programming elements, including all of that station's auto mode settings and all of that station's user mode settings, regardless of how that station is currently programmed. Because WeatherTRAK automatically saves both the auto mode settings and the user mode settings for every station. In addition, if you have flow sensing set up correctly on this controller, you can find some great flow information about this station as well, including the assigned station flow value and the station high flow threshold. So this station callout box has some very detailed and in-depth information. Then in the next column, we see the station mode for every station. In this example, we see station 1 is in user no ET, where you, the user, define how many minutes per cycle and how many cycles per day. Then we see station 2 is programmed in auto mode, or automated by WeatherTRAK, which is the weather-based irrigation scheduling that WeatherTRAK is famous for. So the Manage page makes it very easy to, at a glance, see which station is programmed in which station mode. In fact, the top of the columns are sort features, so if you click on the top of the column, it will sort that column for you and sort them by station mode. So with one click, you bring all the stations with auto mode to the top, and another click will flip that report on its head and bring all of the user mode stations to the top. But for our example, we want to sort by station number so we can see everything in sequence. The next column is program. With WeatherTRAK, every station will be assigned to a program, and that program will be given a start time, water window, and water day. So the program defines when that station is allowed to run. Notice that there's a call-out box underneath each program. So if I wanted to find out the details of program A, I click on the program A on station 2, and that brings up the call-out box that gives me all of the program details. In this case, we can see that there's a 10 p.m. start time, an 8-hour water window, which means all of the irrigation for program A has to execute in the 8 hours following that 10 p.m. start time. And program A has been assigned to water day mode days of the week, where it's allowed to run on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Notice if we click on a station from program B, we can see the details from program B. Next, we have percent adjust, and the percent adjust setting will increase or decrease a station's runtime. To apply the percent adjust to a station from the Manage page, first we click on the station that we want to adjust, and then we come over here to the percent adjust drop-down menu and select exactly how much we want to adjust, as much as plus 25 or 25% extra, or minus 50 or 50% less. So let's say we wanted to add 10%, we would select plus 10, and then we would preview changes, and we could see the plus 10 adjustment has been added to station 3, and then when we click save and send, that save will become permanent in the program. The next two columns are exclusively for the stations that are using automated by WeatherTRAK. When we talk about the station mode called Automated by WeatherTRAK, I teach the concept that underneath every station there's a glass of water, and the growing condition for your plant is adequate as long as that glass of water is totally full or 0% deplete. And the growing condition for your plant is adequate until that glass of water is half full, or at most 50% deplete. So 50% is our target maximum allowable depletion, or our target MAD. This is essentially the trigger for irrigation. So when our current depletion meets or passes 50%, irrigation will be triggered for that night. So the target MAD and the current depletion work hand in hand to establish the frequency of the irrigation program for any station programmed in auto mode. For example, with station 2, we see the target MAD at 50% and the current depletion at 44%, which says that the glass is currently 44% empty and will need to irrigate when it reaches 50%. So if I wanted to reset the current depletion for a station, say to get rid of a station high depletion alert, the process is the same as the percent adjust. I would simply select the station that I want to reset the depletion for. I would go to the drop-down menu for the current depletion. If I want to say that that station is at field capacity and doesn't need irrigation, I would update that station to current depletion 0. Or if I wanted to irrigate tonight, I would up that station depletion to 50%. And after I select the correct current depletion, then I preview changes, where I can see the change that I've made temporarily in green, and then when I hit save and send, that change will be saved into the program. And the next two columns work together as well, because the daily runtime defines how much irrigation a station will need in a day, and the station runtime defines how WeatherTRAK is going to deliver that daily need. And you see here the key features of cycle and soak. So for example, on station 1 in user mode, they've set it up to run 3 minutes 12 times with a 20-minute soak in between each station, for a total daily runtime of 36 minutes. or the stations in auto mode using that same cycle and soak philosophy, where station 2 is set to run for 75.6 total minutes, but WeatherTRAK is automatically going to break that down into 18.9 minutes 4 times with a 20-minute soak in between to allow for proper absorption and minimize the amount of runoff that we get. So these two settings are what most people are looking for because it shows how long any station is scheduled to run on any given night. And these last two columns show off your irrigation frequency, or how often your stations will irrigate. So these columns display the anticipated water day pattern for each station individually. So you can see here that station 1 is programmed to water every day on user mode. But if a station is in auto mode, it may not be projected to irrigate on all the days that its program is allowed to water. Look here at station 2. Station 2 is set up as a native grass station, which is a plant that needs very little water. As we know, program A is allowed to water Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And what's most interesting about station 2 is that even in these summer ET conditions, it's only watering once a week. In the spring and the fall, it might water even less than that. So to find a second irrigation day for that station, you might need to look to the weeks in the future to find another irrigation day. To do that, I use this drop-down menu and select which week the first column should represent. So if I wanted to look at weeks 2 and 3, I would select week 2. And every time the controller gets a new ET, it calculates 8 weeks of schedule for every station. So if I wanted to look at weeks 7 and 8, I would select week 7 for the first column, which would make the final column week 8 of the projected irrigation schedule. And one last thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these automated schedules is that they're projected irrigation based on the current ET. And so as ET changes, so will these projected schedules. So what you see here today might not be what you see here tomorrow. Now that you understand how to read the station irrigation schedules, let's look at some of the other great tools that WeatherTRAK has on the Manage page. First of all, if I came to the Manage page looking for information about my controller, some of the best information exists in the reporting. So while we just learned how to look at the projected schedules or what might happen in the future, using these quick reports, I can find out exactly what has happened in the past. So if I want quick access to a 30-day runtime report, I come here to the quick reports and I click the 30 days runtime, and that's a shortcut that will produce a report of each station's runtime over the last 30 days. If you have Flow properly installed, you can select to see a 30-day Flow report, and it's always nice if you're going out to do a site walk to have a controller settings report and have a spreadsheet that shows you exactly how each station is programmed out in the field. Some of the other handy things you can do here on the Manage Controller page is rename the controller. So if you are unhappy with the name of your controller, you can come right here and change the name and select Save Name to change the name of this controller. Also, while we've covered how to update the depletion for one station at a time, the Manage page has this button called Update Depletion for all stations, which makes it easy to send one signal to update the depletion from 0 to 50% for every station on the controller. One of the most important things you need to understand about the controller that you're managing is the status of your controller alerts. And right here on the Manage page, we have a quick link that if you click on this controller alerts notification, it takes you right to a page that gives you all of the specific alerts for this controller. So as you can see on this controller, we have one system alert called a no flow alert, as well as a water window warning and a water day warning. Seeing and understanding these alerts is some of the most critical management information that a WeatherTRAK manager can have. Next, we want to look at some of the advanced options or advanced features that you can access from the Manage page. Specifically, the rain pause. If you're managing a site and get a call from an angry customer saying that scheduled irrigation is interfering with activity on the site, you can send that controller a rain pause from the Manage page. Simply select the Edit button on Rain Pause and send that controller a 1-day rain pause. Select 1 day from the drop-down menu and then push the Update Rain Pause button, which will immediately send that controller a rain pause and interrupt any scheduled irrigation that's happening and suspend all scheduled irrigation until that rain pause expires, in this case at the next Program A start time. Another WeatherTRAK rain feature that you find exclusively here on the WeatherTRAK.net Manage page is the ability to disable a WeatherTRAK rain pause. If you don't agree with the rain pause information that the WeatherTRAK Climate Center is sending to your controller and you'd rather manage the rain pause yourself, you can click this box to disable the WeatherTRAK Climate Center rain pause and prevent your controller from missing any scheduled irrigation from any future Climate Center rain pause. It's important to note that checking this box will not erase a current Climate Center rain pause, so if you disagree with a current Climate Center rain pause, you can contact our customer service team who have the ability to zero out or get rid of any Climate Center rain pause on any controller. The next advanced option is called Event Pause. So we'll hit Edit, and with an Event Pause, we can predetermine a time when the controller will be completely turned off. So if you have an event, like the one here in the example called the 4th of July Festival, where I want to make sure the irrigation system is completely turned off to not interfere with the setup and takedown of the festival, I can simply schedule a time and date that I want the event pause to start, and a time and date for the event pause to end. And during this event pause, no irrigation will be allowed. Not scheduled irrigation, not manual irrigation. During an event pause, the WeatherTRAK won't even run the valve test. Next, we'll look at master valve override. And for our example with master valve override, we're pretending that this irrigation system shares its main line with a community garden. And we need to override the normally closed master valve to allow the folks at the community garden to access their hose bib and water their plants. So here with the scheduled master valve override, I've selected this as a recurring task. So instead of a one-time task like we set up on the event pause, we set up a recurring task. When we set up a recurring task, we'll set the time that that task should start, in this case 6 a.m., the duration of the master valve override, in this case 4 hours, and then the days of the week and the months of the year that we want this master valve override to happen. So this setup is saying, beginning at 6 a.m. and running for the next 4 hours, every day of the week, in the months starting in April and finishing in October, we want the WeatherTRAK to open a normally closed master valve and suspend all leak alerts on systems that have either a normally closed or a normally open master valve. It's important to note that both the event pause and the master valve override could be scheduled as a single event or as a recurring event. And the last advanced option we want to look at might be the most handy, because the last option is controller mode. This is where we can turn the controller on or off, or set it to shutdown or winterized mode. So if you get home at the end of a long day of making repairs, and you don't remember whether you left the controller on or off and ready to irrigate tonight, you can simply check the Manage page and update the controller mode from here. Now let's complete our discussion about the management tools available here at the Manage Controller page by scrolling all the way down to the bottom past all of those station programs and all the way to the bottom of the Manage Controller page, where we see two very important features. On the left half of the page, we see the controller notes, where we can go in and add any management notes that we want to submit for the permanent record. Once I've finished typing in my note, I push this button called Add Note, and you can see that that will time and date stamp the note, as well as document who made that note. Notice that any note that I made in the controller history, I can delete, but notes that weren't made by me, I cannot delete. So you can control your own correspondence, but you can't delete other people's correspondence. And finally, if your WeatherTRAK account has been given security access that allows permission to view and add documents, you'll see this feature we call the Document Manager. Here you can store maps or controller charts or histories and make all of the documentation that you need for your controller management available to download from the cloud at any time. If you don't see the Document Manager on the bottom of your Manage page, but it's a feature that you'd like to use, all that requires is a simple request to customer service that this level of permission is added to your WeatherTRAK.net account, along with authorization from the controller owner stating that they agree to grant you access to see all of the documents that are assigned to this controller. And that brings us to the end of our discussion about using the WeatherTRAK.net Manage page. I hope you found some tips or tricks that will make using the Manage Controller page easier and more efficient in the future.